You often hear that the medieval Catholic Church was against science. But is it true? In this video I try to explain where this belief comes from and ultimately explore the question: did the medieval church suppress science? The claim that the Catholic Church was against science during the Middle Ages can be read again and again in popular scientific works even today. But these simply take over old works uncritically. Especially in the second half of the 19th century, many books claimed that the Church was against science, like the books by Andrew Dickson or John Draper. Well, you see, during this time a strong antagonism between science and the Church arose. John Draper, one of those authors, wrote, for example, "The medieval Church became a stumbling block in the intellectual advancement of Europe for more than 1,000 years." This trend continued during the 20th century. For example, in the famous TV show and book Cosmos by Carl Sagan in the 1980s. Sagan explained important achievements in the history of science, but he adopted a similar narrative by the earlier mentioned authors. The TV show and the book by Sagan is notorious among medievalists because it presents the Middle Ages as a huge scientific gap. But back to the Middle Ages and the real stance of the Church on science. Probably no other institution than the Church promoted the sciences as strongly during the medieval period as the Church. The first universities were founded in the Middle Ages in cooperation with the Church. Until the end of the 15th century, about 60 universities were founded in Europe, which educated hundreds of thousands of people throughout the Middle Ages. And there was taught not only theology, but also law, medicine, astronomy, logic, and so on. Now, maybe you heard that the Church banned books at the universities, for example from Greek authors. This general statement is wrong. Sometimes indeed books were banned locally, but the students then simply moved to other universities where this was not the case. Many great discoveries were made in the medieval universities, and countless influential scientific works were written by Churchmen. For example, Albertus Magnus, a scholar and bishop of the 13th century. He wrote important works on astronomy, botany, zoology, and many other subjects. Another example would be Roger Bacon, a Franciscan friar. Among other things, he worked on linguistics and optics. Or Nicole Orem, who lived in the 14th century. He wrote important works on mathematics, physics, and economics. So, what's the conclusion here? The medieval church was by no means against science. Why would they? Gigantic cathedrals can only be built with knowledge of architecture, engineering, and geometry. Advancements in medicine also helped the clergy to live longer. Understanding nature was a way of understanding God's creation in their eyes. They weren't against science. Rather, the church was the driving force behind the funding of science in the Middle Ages. Never before in the history of Europe so many people had access to higher education.